faithfully delivering value and interpreting the world's finest books. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Before we dive into today's book, let me start with a few everyday questions. Why are people so captivated by poetry and distant horizons these days? How did traveling the world become this benchmark for happiness? Some claim mass tourism is superficial, that crowds rushing to attractions signal the death of adventurous spirit and travel artistry, a crisis of human spirit. Do you see it that way? If you disagree, then what meaning does travel hold? Today's book, The Tourist, is precisely about questioning the meaning of modern travel. American sociologist Matt Cannell argues mass tourists aren't shallow or vulgar, they're modern pilgrims. So, how did Matt Cannell reach this conclusion? Let me unpack the book's core through three questions. First, why can modern people engage in mass tourism? Second, how did travel become modern pilgrimage? Third, do travelers today truly find fulfillment? Okay, let's explore the first question. Why can people today travel en masse? To answer this, we must understand how modern travelers differ from ancient ones. Travelers have existed since antiquity. For example, some ancient Chinese scholars pursued study journeys. As the saying goes, read 10,000 books, travel 10,000 miles. In the Tang Dynasty, such wanderers were called knights errant. Wang Wei's poem writes, Sinfeng wine costs 10,000 coins per dipper. How many young knights errant in Xianyang? Similarly, 18th century European nobles undertook grand tours for 1 to 2 years, with Paris and Rome as key destinations. This journey was considered vital for personal growth. Figures like Byron and Goethe underwent this, but modern travel has transformed dramatically. While travel was once an upper-class privilege, it's now a cross-class leisure activity. This shift owes to technological breakthroughs from the Industrial Revolution, which enabled modern tourism. For example, the advent of trains and railways shortened distances and drastically reduced transportation costs. This allowed people from all social classes to participate in such leisure activities. This technological progress only reduced the external costs of travel. What truly made tourism popular was modern people's subjective desire. So, how do we explain modern people's passionate love for travel from a subjective perspective? That's exactly Matt Cannell's second question to answer. How did travel become modern people's pilgrimage? Actually, McCannell's most crucial contribution lies right here. In The Tourist, he incisively points out that industrial society caused human alienation, making modern people seek life's meaning in leisure activities. What does alienation mean? Simply put, your labor should fulfill your self-worth and life's purpose. As Kant said, humans should be ends in themselves, not means. But since industrial society, with factories and machinery, labor became fragmented and meaningless. The more machine-like your work, the worse the alienation. For most people, labor holds no creativity. In simple repetition, you can't find meaning and feel your life growing increasingly absurd. Matt Cannell believed this deep alienation drives modern people's need for travel. Matt Cannell proposed a classic metaphor: travel is modern people's pilgrimage. Pilgrimage leads devotees to sacred sites for spiritual fulfillment. Travel can be seen as pilgrimage because it offers fulfillment unattainable through labor. That meaning of life stuff sounds pretty abstract, huh? But actually, it's understandable. Matt Cannell explained it through three types of tourist attractions. The first attraction type is visiting others' workplaces. This lets workers perceive labor's meaning. In the book, Matt Cannell gives an example. In late 19th to early 20th century Paris, tourism was already quite developed. Classic Paris tours followed set routes like today's top 10 attractions, including workplaces like factories, stock exchanges, mints, and courts. First, whether it's factory workshops, stock exchanges, or mints. Matt Cannell says these were originally labor spaces, but in tourism they've become hot attractions. This practice helps you understand how modern workers experience alienation, and overcome it. Matt Cannell notes that when tourists visit workplaces like factories and stock exchanges, they rediscover their meaning as laborers. Specifically, that feeling of being just a cog in the machine gets overcome. Instead comes the satisfaction and pride of being human creators of cars, planes, rockets. Each visitor develops deep identification and respect for human labor, transforming the world. We can create such greatness. How meaningful and valuable labor is. But ironically, this is exactly what their actual work fails to provide. Imagine working at Ford, tightening screws daily on an assembly line versus actually touring one. Seeing a complete car emerge and change transportation is worlds apart because assembly line workers can't feel wholeness or power in their labor. Factory workers feel drudgery and mechanical repetition. So, how do you feel power and wholeness? Only by paying to visit others' workplaces does labor become fascinating, a spectacle that attracts. Some might say this sounds paradoxical, and yes, it is. McCannell argues people as subjects can't find existential meaning in their labor. Only when labor becomes an object on display, re-seen, does its meaning emerge. This paradox roots in industrial labor alienating people, turning them into tools, forcing meaning seeking through leisure. Today, factory tours are rare, but visiting Silicon Valley or Wall Street remains hugely popular for the same reasons. You know, that covers the first attraction type, workplaces. Now let's discuss the second attraction type, historical and cultural sites. These landscapes fulfill people's spiritual needs beyond daily life. Some might say, I don't like visiting workplaces. I prefer museums and appreciating other cultures. How is this related to alienation? Actually, these activities serve similar purposes to factory tours. Seeking meaning, visiting culturally significant sites like former residences of celebrities, historical relics, and museums helps us find our place in the present through historical events. This position may not relate to your livelihood, but deeply connects to your sense of identity. For example, in daily life, you rarely consciously feel, I am Chinese. But when visiting the Forbidden City, you strongly feel Chinese. It's about national and ethnic identity. During travel, you might ponder, who am I? Where do I come from? You feel a unifying force that transcends individuality. Seeing specimens arranged by genus and class in natural history museums convinces you humans are the universe's center and nature's pinnacle. In the vast universe, you're no longer alone. You exist as part of humanity, and a great one. Once again, travel helps humans find meaning and achieve spiritual fulfillment. Compared to workplace tours, these historical and cultural sites generate more profound meaning. But this doesn't cover all attraction types. Next is the third and final attraction type. Natural landscapes and ethnic minority cultures offer the novelty of living elsewhere. First, natural landscapes. Originally belonging to no one, but when fenced and named as parks, they become modern spectacles. And the moment they're enclosed, they cease being natural. It's nature tamed by us, an ironic process. Is a zoo tiger truly a tiger? Would you dare face a tiger in true wilderness? This is how humans fulfill their longing for nature. Another source of novelty is ethnic minority cultural displays. Take so-called authentic ethnic customs. When shown Miao wedding or funeral rites, you might wonder, is this truly their practice today? Do they still live like this today? Average tourists rarely pursue these questions. When visiting workshops, museums, national parks, and ethnic cultures, they're convinced by this manufactured authenticity, and through this conviction, travel's meaning is fulfilled. The distant lands truly brim with exotic charm and hospitality, and the simple, unsophisticated ethnic minorities. Before Egypt's pyramids or the Louvre's Mona Lisa, you experience historical awareness and aesthetic appreciation. No longer feeling like just a cog in society, you become a capitalized, meaning-filled, complete human being. With that, we've covered the three attraction types. Now for the second question's answer. How did travel become modern people's pilgrimage? Simply put, modern people struggle to find meaning in work. Travel makes people feel whole and alive. Ordinary tourists seriously visit factories, study museum plaques, take photos at pyramids, finding meaning as human beings. This shows they're earnest travelers. So, we've addressed the first two questions about modern tourism's causes. I recall my opening question: is modern tourism vulgar? That leads to the book's third question. When we traverse streets or landscapes today, do we truly achieve pilgrimage? Mac Cannell notes many past scholars accused modern tourists of being shallow and vulgar. But actually, it's not tourists themselves causing vulgarity, it's the tourism industry serving them. Vulgarity's essence isn't lost adventure spirit, but that factories, museums, and pyramids are commercialized, staged realities. This might provide spiritual satisfaction, but distances tourists from authentic reality. Here, McCann coined an influential concept: staging. Staged authenticity, staged meaning theatrical, performative. Matt Cannell says this manufactured reality, stage authenticity, exists not just in tourism, but throughout modern society. For example, adding pigment to beef to make it look more authentically red. The beauty industry makes breasts fuller, skin whiter, eyes bigger, creating standard appearances, all forms of staged authenticity. Today, the real crisis is our obsession with staged authenticity, being deceived by manufactured realities. This concept truly established Matt Cannell as a sociologist. So, why does this crisis exist? And why did Matt Cannell reach this conclusion? This leads us to Matt Cannell's analytical framework, dramaturgical theory. Dramaturgical theory is a key sociological perspective, viewing life as a stage with social scenes as performances. Thus, every scene has a front stage and backstage area. The front stage is for receiving guests and formal performances, like a home's living or dining room. The backstage is your private rest area, such as bedrooms or kitchens. The backstage is vitally important. On front stage, you perform proper social roles. At backstage, you shed the act. Resting there fuels your front stage performance. Thus, the backstage is where authenticity lives, with true friends, hopes, and anxieties. So, what's staged authenticity? It's performing the relaxed authenticity that belongs backstage. This destroys your backstage. When observing others' lives, what seems real is still performance. Returning home as hosts receiving tourists, we perform our backstage as authenticity. Consider chefs. Previously, they could work in kitchens just preparing dishes. Not today. People flock to experiential restaurants to watch chefs cook before customers. In 1999, McCannell lamented how workers now provide not just labor, but emotions and smiles, unprecedented demands. Of course, this change is most evident in the service industry. Tourism provides the stage where staged authenticity floods the world, causing two crises. First crisis: it transforms spaces meant for rest into workspaces, further eroding our living spaces, like the chef who must not only cook but perform cooking with smiles. Like, human alienation actually deepens. Second crisis: staged authenticity impoverishes our imagination of the world. Our acceptance and understanding of genuine differences deteriorate. Take cosmetic surgery. While enhancing beauty, it makes people look increasingly alike, like ubiquitous influencer faces or ethnic minorities who historically fished for survival. Now they preserve seaside houses as museums while living modern lives in cities. Once surviving through fishing, now surviving through performing fishing. If you find the performance fake, there's no authentic version to see. You wouldn't want to observe their actual lives. Their city apartments and lifestyles barely differ from yours. So where lies the fundamental difference between you and ethnic minorities? This difference feels manufactured by tourism, not reflective of authentic reality. So, is tourism vulgar? The author answers by revealing tourism's inner logic, critiquing not travelers but the industry's pretense of authenticity. The sociologist's mission is exploring how social mechanisms shape choices in lives, assessing their reasonableness. They care whether these systems allow dignified living. Matt Cannell's analysis of modern tourists achieves this purpose by exposing staged authenticity, manufactured and false. McCannell urges us to courageously face true authenticity. So, what is true authenticity? In my view, accepting unaltered faces, work meaningful without spectators, and embracing cultural evolution beyond preserved customs. As a true sociologist, McCannell not only highlighted the dangers of staged authenticity in theory, but also actively worked to resist it in practice. He once provided free advice to a Chinese community in California because they didn't want their neighborhood turned into a living museum by developers and local governments for tourists to visit. Through their resistance, the development plan was abandoned. Of course, tourism issues extend far beyond just these three questions covered in this episode. Um, After hearing this interpretation of the tourist, we can continue pondering further. Uh, for example, does everyone follow the tourism industry's curated paths to see the world? Is it even possible to escape the staged authenticity of attractions, big and small? As a traveler, how should you view the relationship between poetry and distant horizons and the present moment? Without poetry and distant horizons, where does life's meaning lie in such a complex, modern, commercial world? I believe we can continue exploring these questions following Matt Cannell's line of thought. All right, that concludes our introduction to The Tourist. The book notes are below the audio, and we'll see you tomorrow.